Hey guys, Woods Farm here. Just back working on the Kubelwagen today. Working on the canopy top. Before I get to that, some bad news. Working on the brakes and trying to bleed them. And I actually felt like I had more braking power yesterday. I was test driving it and everything seemed like it was improving. I adjusted the shoes. I was kind of playing around with the adjustment, and it seemed to be doing a lot better. And then boom, it's leaking fluid again from the new master cylinder. This time it is leaking from, you can't see in there, but it's leaking from one of the switches, the electronic brake switch. A little bit of fluid is leaking out of that. So this is just turning into a complete nightmare. So I'm going to let that sit and come back to it when I'm not so frustrated. Who would have thought something as simple as brakes would give me so much problem? But now I'm working on this canopy top. I played around, and instead of doing indexing pins, I just have these kind of end caps. And it works really nice because I found the way that my windshield frame is built here, there's this kind of step. I don't know if you can see that little bit of a step there, and then this piece actually sort of sits on the step, and it keeps the whole framework from shifting, you know, left and right or side to side. So it's not really stock, or it's just, it is what it is. It's gonna work. The canopy top was never going to be a perfect, you know, replica anyways. And I've gone ahead and I have these clips, these toggle clips that I bought. And these just came from Amazon. And these are what are going to clip onto a hook here and then lock the windshield in place. So I've got these mounted. Now I just need to come up fabricate some sort of a hook system. And I think I'm going to make it so it's it bolts in place. And there'll be a couple of holes that are tapped, and it'll be bolted in there. So I'm just going to fabricate up these clips, and really it's getting close. Once the clips are done, I'm going to work on these nylon straps. They've got to get set into the right position and redone. And really after that, then I can start attacking the whole problem of the patterning of the actual canvas top. So that should be fun. Okay, so that's the little hook that comes with the toggle clamp, latch, whatever you want to call it. And I think it's designed to be kind of held like at a 90-degree angle. So I can't just screw this to the windshield. I need to make some sort of a bracket that holds it at the correct angle. So I just went with 90 degrees to start. I think that's it's not gonna be kind of at the same angle as the windshield. It'll be down a little bit, but that actually might give it more of a grabbing surface. So I'm just gonna test this out and see how it works, and we'll go from there. I might have to make the angle, change it a little bit to get it to work right. Okay, so I'm gonna have to rethink this. I thought just pulling it in would be enough clamping power, but I mean ultimately it could lift up. So what it needs downward clamping force. So I'm going to go back to the drawing board. I'm going to leave this side as it is, and I'll start playing around on the driver's side. And I'm going to try to get this toggle clip on the bottom and put the hook on the actual frame, clamping it down. Originally, I kind of intuitively thought it needed to clamp it down, but I felt like the toggle would be kind of loose and flapping around there. I didn't like that idea. Okay, so on the driver's side, I've got something that's going to work. Just got to clean this up, but the concept's there. This part is welded onto a little piece of steel that's at 90 degrees, and that will actually bolt in and out in case it like cracks or breaks off. I was gonna weld it, but then I just thought, no, you know what, a lot of vibration is gonna happen there. And if that weld cracks, I'm going to have to take off the canvas and everything to re-weld it. So better to have a piece that you can unbolt and repair. And then this is the bracket, the toggle clamp. And I'll lock it down. So I'm gonna clean that up, weld everything. A lot of the welds are just tacked in place right now. The actual toggle is on a piece of steel, like a plate, which just extends the bolt holes down and gives me a good way to bolt it to the window frame. So I have to undo what I did on the other side and redo what I have on the driver's side over on the passenger side, but that's going to be really easy now that I know what I'm doing. So I finished the clips on both sides late last night. There's the driver's side. I'm not totally happy with the way it turned out. The little hooks in particular, it's really just, I didn't want to obstruct any more of the view of the windshield, and honestly these toggle clips could have been over maybe 1/4 of an inch or even 1/2 an inch. But to be able to bolt them on the windshield frame, they kind of had to be centered, and that made it so I had to make these clips over, and they're a little further over than I would like, but it may cause problems when I come down the road trying to do the actual side screens, which I may never even get to. That's really far down the road, considering how this vehicle is going to be used. The side screens, probably not super important. I would like to do them, but I think there's just enough clearance, but it's going to be close. The main thing is these work. There's a really positive retention on the up and down movement. And they clip down. When you unclip them and when the windshield is folded back, this is one of my concerns, was this part of the toggle was kind of going to flop around. But what you can do is you can actually screw it down, and it wedges against this part, this locking mechanism, and it holds it pretty tightly. So that'll work. They kind of stick out now, but I think once they get a coat of paint on them, they're going to blend right in. Definitely that's the way to go. You know, what I started with up here on the top roof line, that just wasn't going to work. So at least we have something that functions. I don't know if you can see that very well. It's probably backlit a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't look too bad. I need to put in a rubber gasket on the inside of this, or I'm just going to use some of that foam stuff that with the sticky backing. And there's nothing fancy. The way that I'm going to do the canvas is it's just going to roll over the top here, and then there'll be either a bar that goes across it, or it'll have screws with rubber gaskets just affixing it directly to the front beam there. But I'll get to that later. So now that those clips are done, I'm going to work on the nylon strapping. The old stuff was too short, and it also was pretty deteriorated, so some new strapping's in order. I'm just using Chicago rivets, or screws I should say, and I'm going to replace the one on both sides. Once that's done, I got to paint it, but once the paint's done, I'm going to actually start working on some sort of pattern for that canvas top. That'll be the next thing. So the main thing about this webbing material is you got to melt it or it'll fray. And if you want to put a hole through this stuff, the best way to do it is just get an awl and heat it up with a torch. Get it pretty much red hot, but it doesn't have to be perfectly red hot. And then you're just going to melt a hole through. Just like that. Okay, here goes. I'm just starting with the canvas. So my original idea was to have a piece of canvas large enough to cover the whole thing and then kind of pleat the sides so it would fold down and create the side panel. But I looked at photos and it appears there is a seam 3 or 4 inches in. And then I started thinking about, okay, this drop cloth came in a large sheet, but it was seamed, and they're only going to make this fabric canvas in certain widths, and I'm going to have to work within that, which is obviously why they have a seam on each side. So there's basically a top panel and then there's 2 side panels. So I'm going to go with that design. That way, like I said, this is mostly a pattern. This material is not thick enough really to, you know, be completely waterproof or, you know, long term. If this turns out, I'll probably dye it and use it temporarily, but later down the road I'll be able to take it apart and use it as a pattern for some thicker, better canvas. Okay, so now I'm just working on the side panel here. Gonna have to have a little pleat here to make it move around the corner, and then it's gonna come along and then come down, obviously. Where these clips are, that's where the grommets are. Not quite sure how it's going to work in this corner, but there definitely needs to be some sort of a pleat here. I think tomorrow I'm going to work on figuring out exactly where the seam needs to be, and I might actually sew this. Of course, I got to work on the other side as well. So it's sort of a slow, tedious process, but I want to get it as tight as possible. And then the real thing I don't know right now is how I'm going to deal with the front. You know, whether or not I'm going to have a bar in a pocket that gets screwed to the frame, or, you know, my wife suggested glue, just gluing it on and having it overlap. I'm not 100% how that's going to play out, but for now this is what I've got. So I think tomorrow maybe some sewing. And this edge here, it's actually, this is way far down, it's probably somewhere in this range. What I think, I was going to fold it over and sew it, but I think I might make trim and do that. It'll probably be stronger and it'll look a little nicer. So we'll see how that works out. Okay, so I have the driver's side on, and I'm working on these seams, making sure everything lines up here, and then I'm going to pull it off, do some ironing, and I guess I'm just going to sew. There's only so much you can do to prep it, and I'm just going to have to sew, and then hopefully it works. I have to put some thought into how I'm going to turn it inside out. It's not symmetrical perfectly, unfortunately, so that complicates things. If it was, I could just sew it as it is, flip it inside out, and this side would become the driver's side, but unfortunately I'm going to have to repin everything opposite to what it is right now to get the outcome I want. So that's a little complicated, but the sewing's the easy part. Okay, so I got the two side panels sewed on, and now I just need to figure out how to attach the front. And once I get this front piece attached to the framework, then I'm going to move towards the back and I can locate the grommets and position those. My idea is kind of just being able to pull it tight from the front moving to the back. So I'm going to wrap this video up here. It shouldn't take me much longer to finish this. This is just the prototype, but I'll probably dye it and use it temporarily this summer, but I'll be able to take it apart later and use it as a pattern when I get some better canvas. As always, thanks for watching.